Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about this topic and this sort of subject that I found to be very particularly interesting. Anyways, of course, for those of you that have recently heard the Saul Canelo Alvarez news, he, of course, did end up signing a three-fight deal, I believe, with that of the PBC, also known as Premier Boxing Champions, working with that of Al Heyman and Showtime. Well, of course, one of the fights and the first fight that many people thought that was going to happen, I believe, somewhere around the September date, would be that against that of one of the Charlo brothers. And I believe now that the date has been confirmed of that of September 30th, except it is not the Charlo brother that we thought it was going to be, and that of Jermell Charlo, the bigger brother. When I say bigger, I'm talking about the one of the higher weight classes, but is going to be the smaller brother in stature, but the completely unified champion at the 154-pound weight division, Jermel Charlo. This comes to a surprise to many people, including myself. I gotta say that out of all the moves that Canelo Alvarez was possibly going to make for his next fight, this probably would have been the one that I least predicted. Now, am I a big fan of this fight? I think that it's an okay fight. I think that it's probably more than an okay fight. It's a very good fight because Jermell Charlo is one of the top boxers in boxing. I've already said this personally. I don't really have him personally at least 100% for sure on my top 10 pound for pound list, as I stated yesterday. But if you did, I don't really have a problem with it. But according to new media, including channels like that of BOXINGEGO and Dante's Boxing Nation and Aki TV, Jermell Charlo has not gotten his just due for many years, and he should allegedly, according to them, be within the top 5 pound for pound. So this makes me wonder, Canelo Alvarez, who they allegedly don't even have on their top 10 pound for pound list right now, if he beats Jermell Charlo, who allegedly is a top 5 pound for pound fighter, does this mean that Canelo Alvarez is going to make their top 5 pound for pound list? Even though, yes, Jermell Charlo, he clearly is going to be smaller than that of Canelo Alvarez. Remember, these are the same guys that claimed that Canelo Alvarez needed to fight that of Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence Jr. and that he was quote-unquote avoiding them and other fighters like Demetrius Andrade and Jermel Charlo. So let's just see, once again, if they actually give Canelo Alvarez credit for defeating that of Jermel Charlo. It's going to be very interesting. Do I believe that they're going to do that? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, this is a very interesting fight. Listen, what do I personally think of the fight myself? I think that it's a very good fight, like I said. Do I think that this fight would return Canelo Alvarez to the number 1 pound for pound spot for me? Well, many of you may already still have him there because many of you do not believe, and understandably so, that the loss to a light heavyweight in Dimitri Bivol was enough to derank Canelo Alvarez because, of course, he clearly is not a light heavyweight fighter. He's a guy that's around 5'8" to 5'9" with about a 70 to 71 inch arm reach. So all of that is understandable. So if you still had Canelo Alvarez at your number 1 pound per pound spot, this certainly could add on more to the case that Canelo Alvarez could still stay at that number 1 pound per pound spot. But I gotta say once again, not many things end up shocking me within that of the sports world. This is probably the most shocking news that I've seen, certainly in boxing within the past 10 years. Maybe Kell Brook versus Gennady Golovkin was a little bit more shocking. That maybe was a little bit more shocking when I first heard about it. But I gotta say, out of all the moves, once again, that I thought Canelo possibly was going to do, this probably would have been the least thought, the least one on my mind, just personally. But anyways, let's see what Mr. Boxing Ego says. He always usually brings a decent amount of points in his videos. Some that I tend to agree with, some that I tend to disagree with. Let's see what he has to say.
I mean, like, for real, let me show y'all what it is. Why y'all don't make Canelo versus Charlo? Y'all talking about? Somebody put that together. Little Charlo will fight anybody. I ain't never done no smoke. Yeah.
I'll give Jermel Charlo this, especially if the rumors that I'm hearing are true. He certainly is willing to fight a lot of people. He's willing to fight pretty much anybody. He rematched that of Brian Gastano. Of course, he pretty much had to because the fans and the media would have been on his ass because it was a draw, and a very controversial draw at that, a fight that a lot of people, including myself, thought that he had lost. And of course, he avenged the loss to Tony Harrison. But of course, you know what? One could argue that he pretty much had to avenge those losses because one was a draw and one was a loss. So are you just not going to run those back? Basically, the fans would have been on your ass. It's not like it was a controversial win when, say, for example, when Canelo Alvarez beat Araceli Lara. Now, of course, that fight never had a rematch. But that was a fight that could have went either way. Either way, not to discredit Mr. Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo, he has fought in a lot of decent contenders. I don't think that any of them have been clearly A grade other than Brian Gastano. But Jermell Charlo has went through a lot of adversity through that of the 154-pound weight division. And he certainly has done a lot more than that of his brother, that of Jermell Charlo. So Jermell Charlo does deserve a lot of credit. I don't think that he's the most skilled fighter in the world, especially if you put him on the pound-for-pound list. But, he is, a very good fighter.
Undisputed versus undisputed. That could be a big...
That's going to be very interesting as well. Jermell Charlo is completely undisputed. So this must mean that Canelo Alvarez, that after this fight, because remember, these are the same guys that wanted Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence to fight Canelo Alvarez. Canelo apparently is avoiding these black fighters when it comes down to it. And once again, that's not me saying that Canelo has not kind of pushed off certain fights in the past. But I've never been a fan of this narrative saying that Canelo especially has been avoiding and ducking and dodging these fighters and always fights the weakest competition. That's just never made any sense, like I've already said. Canelo is a guy that's fought Danny Jacobs, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Araceli Lara, Sergey Kovalev, Caleb Plant, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Gennady Triple G Golovkin, Miguel Cotto. Like, you're talking about a dude who pretty much has fought almost everybody throughout his generation. Doesn't mean that every single fight that was supposed to happen has happened. Of course, we still want to see David Benavidez and Andre and Jermell Charlo never happened. But at the end of the day, Canelo Alvarez has fought in a lot of great fighters. Period.
Thing in boxing.
Oh, whoa, yo, hold up. Not me, not Marshall. Canelo just posted this. This is breaking news. He says undisputed versus undisputed. The picture is showing Jermel, not Jermel Charlo. What a plot twist. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I am back with some more boxing. Now, Canelo just posted this, and it says Canelo versus Charlo. But here's the plot twist. It's not Jermel Charlo. Now, this is crazy. Canelo posted, it says undisputed versus undisputed, and the graphic is actually showing Jermel Charlo with all his belts. So unless Canelo is joking or I'm interpreting this wrong, it's looking like Canelo versus Jermel Charlo, not Jermel Charlo, which oh my gosh, this to me is cap. I'm gonna explain why. Now, I already had, and I'm just being honest, the Canelo Chupapi Muñeño.
I'll see, because Canelo Alvarez, of course, you never know what his next move is going to be. Maybe, he is going to fight Jermell Charlo next. But the fact that he said undisputed versus undisputed, I mean, unless somebody hacked his account, I don't really see how it could be a mistake.
They can say whatever they want. But I had reservations about Canelo fighting Charlo. And those two reservations, really two things. Charlo, probably three things. Jermell Charlo has had family issues, right? He's been out the ring for 2+ years. He's coming off a hand injury in that Montiel fight. And he had no experience at 168.
Boo fucking who. At the end of the day, Jermell Charlo once again, and I understand the limitations. He has been out for 2 years and he's had certain mental issues. All that is understandable. But a big part of the reason why Jermell Charlo is at the point that he actually is because Jermell Charlo has not been willing to take so many of the bigger fights that he could have potentially taken. And don't get me wrong, some of those fighters Canelo Alvarez has not fought yet either, like David Benavidez or Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. But one thing you always have to say about Canelo is that he's usually in a fight that usually matters. Not necessarily John Ryder or, that one dude from Turkey. I can't remember the dude's name, Avni Yildirim. But Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, and Callum Smith, and even the Gennady Golovkin trilogy, all those fights were somewhat fights that somewhat mattered. And now he's going to be fighting with, a 3-fight deal with that of the PBC. Jermell Charlo has done absolutely nothing within the past several years of his career.
So I was like, it's a big fight, but at the same time, you're fighting a guy that's never even fought at 168. So what is...
Right, but let's stop the bullshit. Let's stop the cap, as people would say. Jermell Charlo, once again, no, he's never been at 168. Canelo Alvarez is not a natural 168 pounder. And if he's this guy that is allegedly this Canelo Alvarez beater, going up one weight class, that's really going to be the deal breaker. Like, let's just stop when it comes down to it. Remember, these are the same guys that said if Vasily Lomachenko is that good, why doesn't he go up and fight Terrence Bud Crawford? So once again, let's stop the bullshit.
Canelo do? Canelo fights.
Because if Josh Taylor went up to 147 tomorrow and fought Errol Spence Jr. or whoever, the former undisputed would be, or whoever the current undisputed would be, let's just say that, Josh Taylor, after he became completely undisputed, if he went up one weight class and fought that of Terrence Bud Crawford or Errol Spence, none of these guys would be saying, oh, well, he's never fought at 147 before. People would be saying, listen, you're one of the top fighters in the world. You're moving up one weight division. You have business to handle. The only narrative I've ever heard this with is that of Canelo Alvarez when it comes down to, or with these other fighters, or excuse me, with these channels. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're talking about, a significant difference in weight, or if you want to bring that up consistently, I don't have a problem with it. But once again, if you're talking about one weight division of a move, and Canelo's not really even a natural 168 pounder anyway, like that's supposed to be the major difference. Like, come on.
The smaller brother, according to this flyer, undisputed versus undisputed. So I guess he wants an opportunity to say, oh, I'm undisputed. But Jermel is also coming off somewhat of a layoff. He hasn't fought since Brian Castano, and he's a 154-pound undisputed champion. So I need to hear the details, but...
Well, hold on a minute, Ego. Jermell Charlo, apparently Jermell Charlo has been avoided by Canelo Alvarez for the past several years. Jermell Charlo also apparently is a part of the deepest division in boxing. So what's the issue here? Yeah, sure, there's going to be a little bit of a size difference, but Jermell Charlo is top 5 pound per pound. So what's the problem?
I mean, is Jermel Charlo moving from 154 close to or to 168? Because that's almost even crazier, because at least Jermell Charlo had one belt at 160, so he would be moving up 8 pounds. But if Canelo is fighting Jermel Charlo, who's undisputed at 154, and Canelo fights and he's undisputed at 168, that's a 14-pound difference. So I'm very...
Right, but Canelo Alvarez is not a natural 168 pounder. He's not. Canelo Alvarez has always been a guy that's rehydrated a little bit heavier. It didn't really matter whatever weight class he was going to be at. Now, one might say that this weight division is going to give Canelo more of an advantage because of that, maybe because he doesn't have to drain himself quite as much. And one maybe could argue that. But once again, Canelo's not a natural 168 pounder. He never has been.
Anxious to see what they decide to do since they're separated by a division. Jermel is under 160 and Canelo is over 160. So in the history of the 4-belt era, I don't recall this ever being done. I don't really know how you defend your belts from 54, undisputed belts, and take it up to 168 or a catch weight of close to 168 and defend that.
I don't believe that Canelo Alvarez is going to go after Jermell Charlo's belts. I don't think that Canelo Alvarez can make 154 at this time. I think that maybe he can make 160, at this point when it came down to it. But, I don't think he's going to be able to make 154. I doubt that Jermell Charlo is going to lose his belts. I think that in terms of, what's winnable or losable for either of them, I think that it's a good fight for either of them if you want to just talk about who gains or who loses. Because Jermell Charlo, he only has something to gain from this. Now, of course, I will say this. After this fight, there is the potential that Jermell Charlo may not be the same fighter ever again after this fight. I will say that. But it's almost kind of like the Mikey Garcia versus Errol Spence Jr. situation, where when it comes down to where Mikey, he pretty much was doing it to avoid that of Vasily Lomachenko. I don't think Jermel's really doing it to avoid anybody. I just think that, he does want to fight Canelo and have a grand opportunity. For Canelo, he gets the opportunity to say that he beat an undisputed fighter at another weight class. And for Jermell Charlo, he can also say that, and on top of that, beating one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the world.
Again,
while also not losing his belts.
The 168-pound undisputed fighters champion. So to me, that sounds kind of cap. Because, you got to look at it. If that's the case, then Kell Brook was a champion, one-belt champion, IBF champion. So basically, realistically, I'm in my fight with Triple G. Right? When he had the chocolate brownies and he was fighting Golovkin. Golovkin was a champion at 160. Kell Brook was a champion at 147. So that
Look at the size difference between that of Canelo and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., excuse me. Now, of course, Jr., we eventually figured out that he was never the best fighter in the world, really. But, Jr. was a dude that fought at middleweight for years upon years. That just goes to show you that Canelo Alvarez, once again, when a lot of these guys, they claim that, well, Canelo, he lost to Dimitri Bivol because he's this limited fighter. No, Canelo, a big part of the reason why he looked so limited in that Dimitri Bivol fight, not only because his stamina was very bad in that fight. Canelo is 5'9" with a 71-inch arm reach. The dude is a middleweight fighter. So once again, a lot of people, they don't understand how tough it is to pretty much start off at 154 in your career and then win a belt all the way up to 175.
it would be like Kell Brook fighting Golovkin at his weight, which is middleweight at the time, and bringing that IBF belt from 147 past 154 to 160. I mean, I personally have not heard of it. If you guys can think of an example where this has taken place, you let me know that in the comments section. Don't recall it. Maybe it eludes me, but I don't recall that. I don't know how you skip a division and both guys defend their belts. But,
I don't think Jermel Charlo is going to be defending his belts. I just think that it's pretty much going to be looked at as a big fight. Now, of course, Canelo, he will be defending his belts. Who knows, though? They may have a catchweight at 160. I haven't really seen any of the details in terms of the weights or anything like that. But from what I know as of right now, more than likely the fight is going to happen at 168.
The game of boxing has frequently made different arrangements and exceptions to their rules. But, we know the game of boxing has frequently made different arrangements and exceptions to their rules for Canelo Alvarez. It is still a big fight. Any Charlo versus Canelo would be a big fight, but I actually don't prefer this even more just based on the weight differential and the man's coming off.
Of course you don't, because once again, you're not going to be happy unless Canelo Alvarez is in a fight that you personally believe that he's going to lose. It just is what it is. Now, once again, I understand, at the end of the day, boxing fans do prefer those 50-50 fights. But the reason why I've always gotten on the asses of a lot of these LDBC and new media channels is that they always talk this full bag of shit, and then when a fight is allegedly about to happen like that of a Canelo versus either of the Charlo brothers, the two fighters that they've been saying that Canelo has been avoiding for that of 10 plus years, all of a sudden they don't like the fight anymore. Oh, Charlo's been off for 2 years. Oh, Jermell Charlo, he's never fought at the higher weight divisions. Well, not too long ago, a lot of these LDBC and new media boys were claiming that Jermell Charlo was being avoided by Canelo. Why is he not fighting Jermell Charlo? Why is he not fighting Errol Spence Jr.? Because he doesn't want the smoke with those two fighters. Well, now they're about to get it. So let's see what happens. And like I said, I understand. I agree with Ego's point completely that Jermell Charlo, that the size probably is going to be a slight disadvantage. No doubt about it. But once again, keep the same standards. If you're going to allege that Canelo Alvarez is avoiding these fighters like Jermell Charlo and all these other guys, well, now that the fight is happening, you can't complain.
For a broken.
And like I said, Canelo is the only fighter on the planet that I've seen that, these guys, especially these new media and LDBC channels, Canelo is the only fighter that I've ever seen, at least within the past few years, where they say that Canelo Alvarez, he's fighting a guy that never had experience at 168, blah, blah, blah. Right, but these guys consistently call for Canelo Alvarez to fight Dimitri Bivol and that of Artubetebeev. And if you're going to go to cruiserweight, why are you fighting that at Badu Jack? Why are you fighting Ilunga Makabu? Fight Alexander Usyk, even though he's only had one fight at light heavyweight before and he's never fought at cruiserweight. So once again, that's why I say that Canelo has pretty much gone through that of the number one pound-for-pound fighter, basically that status, because Floyd Mayweather Jr., the number one pound-for-pound fighter effect, because Floyd Mayweather Jr. and other past pound-for-pound fighters dealt with the same thing.
Hand, which canceled his January fight with Tim Tszyu. However, I will say this. I do come from the old school in terms of don't start none, won't be none. Jermell Charlo recently did an Instagram live, and he said that can't beat me with that ish. This was like a date after the John Ryder performance. So Charlo did ask for this. I will say that I guess in
Yes, both Charlo brothers are known for cashing checks that their ass can't cash. Jermell Charlo has been doing it for the past several years. He did it with David Benavidez. He picked on the wrong dog, and then overall he pretty much ran away. Jermell Charlo, one thing I'll give him credit for is that he at least tries to cash the check.
on Canelo's side, he heard that, and he's trying to call his bluff or whatever. But it's kind of weird. I think this kind of messes up things. I was looking forward to the Jermell Charlo, and I still said even.
What do you mean you're looking towards the Jermell Charlo? Jermell Charlo's had mental issues. He's had drug issues. He's been off for 2 years. Once again, these guys are not happy with anything. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I understand his point, but the problem is with these guys, just like that of old media, is that they're not consistent. Like I said, name the fight that you want for Canelo Alvarez. Now, of course, they like the David Benavidez fight, but also according to them, Canelo Alvarez has also avoided Jermell Charlo and many of these other guys for years. And now that he's allegedly about to fight them, all of a sudden, they're not good enough and blah, blah, blah. All this other bullshit. Like, come on. And like I said, with Jermell Charlo, it's more understandable because he was off for 2 years. All that is understandable. But Jermell Charlo, he didn't fight not too long ago. He's undisputed at this point in time in his career. And I wouldn't have a problem if these guys like Eagle and Dante's Box Nation, for example, if they consistently said, well, even though that'd be a decent fight, I think that Jermell Charlo is a little bit too small. But these are the same guys that have been talking shit for years upon years about Canelo Alvarez, even recently about how he should fight Jermell Charlo, but he won't do it. He won't even fight a smaller weight class fighter because he's afraid of these quote-unquote slick black American fighters. Okay, then, so let's see overall how the fight turns out. Like I said, Jermell Charlo allegedly also, according to these guys, is top 5 pound per pound. Let's see if he's top 5 pound per pound now if Canelo Alvarez gets the victory. I bet they change up really fast.
The inactivity with coming off the Montiel performance, that would still be a dangerous fight, but he wants to fight the smaller Charlo. Kind of weird, Now
all of a sudden he's claiming that, well, it's not a good fight because Jermell is smaller. Once again, these are the same guys that were claiming that Lomachenko should fight Terrence Bud Crawford, Canelo fight Alexander Usyk if you're going to go up to cruiserweight. But they have a problem when Jermell Charlo is about to fight Canelo. And they wanted the Jermell Charlo fight to allegedly happen. Remember, some of these channels, they allegedly wanted this fight to happen. Once again, all these guys do, just like any other fanboy, they talk a lot of shit, and then once that coming is about to happen, all of a sudden they change their mind. All of a sudden they show you what they truly thought about it. And they're not the only fans that do it.
I got to think about this some more. I just want to give you guys the initial news. Canelo just posted this as of me recording this video, and I'm not really sure how to feel about this. And the thing that looks bad for Canelo,
the whole LDBC and new media isn't going to really know how to feel about this because they've been talking shit about this fight potentially for the past several years, even with Jermell Charlo, even with the smaller brother. They don't know really how to feel about this because what their plan is that the winner of the Errol Spence and Terrence Bud Crawford fight, that they were going to fight each other. Whoever the winner of that was going to fight Jermell Charlo right after that without any disturbance. But now that Canelo Alvarez is about to fight Jermell Charlo, the guy who is allegedly top 5 pound per pound when it comes down to it, according to them. Now that Canelo Alvarez is about to fight him, this really ruins their plans.
Is you could fight David Benavidez, which is the top fight that people probably want to see you fight, and he's a full-fledged 168. So you don't have to worry about Charlo not being at 168, being at 160, Jermell, and being on inactivity. You don't have to worry about the other Charlo, smaller Charlo, Jermel Charlo, coming from 154, possibly 14 pounds, or to some 160 pounds something catch weight, and coming off of a hand injury. David Benavidez is the ready-made fight, and he's a former 2-time champion.
Hold on, let me rewind that.
Possibly 14 pounds, or to some 160 pounds something catch weight, and coming off of a hand injury. David Benavidez is the ready-made fight.
Coming off of a hand injury. Jermell Charlo just recently came off of a knockout victory over Brian Gastano. The hand injury happened it happened months ago. Let's stop the bullshit. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Actually, I believe he recently had another hand injury or a hand injury I believe it was Brian Castano who actually had to pull out of the second fight. So no, Jermell Charlo did recently have a hand injury. But once again, where was the same standards when Canelo Alvarez had surgery on his hand just several months ago? Those same standards were nowhere to be found. Go fight Dimitri Bivol. Go fight Artur. If you're going to fight a cruiserweight, go fight Alexander Usyk. Once again, that's how you can tell who the true #1 pound-for-pound fighter actually is.
And he's a former two-time champion in that division where you're undisputed, and you're trying to pick on the Charlos kind of off injury, inactivity, and both guys, no matter what Charlo were.
No, Jermel Charlo has not been inactive. He had a hand injury not too long ago. It should be healed up by now. I didn't hear any of these same things when Canelo Alvarez had a hand surgery not too long ago. Let's stop the bullshit.
Get it, Jermel or Jamal, they would both be coming up in weight to fight at 168, presumably. So I'll wait for some more details and give you guys continued coverage of this. Kind of shocking. I don't really get shocked in boxing, but for lack of a better
I agree. This is very shocking. It was not a move that I was expecting.
word, it is something that I didn't expect. All the reports were making it sound like Jermell Charlo was the front runner, and come to find out, according to this, is Jermel Charlo. Unless Canelo's just teasing. I don't know, because he didn't really say nothing. So I don't know if Canelo's just teasing this idea or it's a switcheroo. I really don't know at this point. All I know is I will continue to give you guys the coverage. If anything should change, I will update you. I'm just getting this and reacting to it, Johnny on the spot, because I am the best in the business. Let me know what you guys think, and I'm out.
But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. I just thought that I would talk about that because, once again, it's going to be very interesting to see where new media and the LDBC go from here. These guys that allege that they're pretty much for honesty and objectivity. Once again, a big part of the reason why I like to review their videos is because these guys are so full of shit. Just like that of old media and a lot of these other guys. And that's one of the things that I do on my channel is I review certain narratives. And once again, these are the same guys that were claiming that why isn't Canelo fighting Jermel Charlo, even though he's smaller, he's undisputed, he's an A-grade black fighter. Why wouldn't he even fight those guys? No, he's fighting John Wright. Well, now he is fighting Jermel Charlo. And once again, they don't seem too happy about it. So like I said, let's just see what happens. But once again, on a real and logical note, I do understand the points from a logical side of view and not to play the, well, according to your logic, point of view. I also do agree that Jermel Charlo, that he probably is the lesser of the two brothers in terms of skill, also in terms of athleticism. But Jermel Charlo has been out for 2 years. And on top of that, if Jermel Charlo truly is supposed to be a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter, they shouldn't mind this fight. Because Canelo, once again, he's not a natural 168-pounder anyway. So let's see what happens. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. This is going to be a very interesting fight if it does actually end up coming to fruition. I probably will do more videos on this. Jermel Charlo, in my view, the size probably is going to be somewhat of a disadvantage. But like I said, according to many of the LDBC and new media lists that I keep hearing, Canelo should have fought him a while ago and still should have fought him. But apparently he was afraid of certain fighters like Jermell Charlo and Errol Spence and Jermell Charlo and David Benavidez. So they shouldn't mind this fight at all. They shouldn't mind it at all. And once again, Jermell Charlo is top 5 pound-for-pound. So this should promote Canelo very high in the pound-for-pound list, if not even #1. So let's see what happens. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.